You know? Like,
Hi, Liz. Down by the borderline. Down by the borderline. Down by the borderline. Gonna raise the flame of liberty. Down by the borderline. Down by the borderline. Ain't gonna throw no kids in jail. 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 Down by the borderline. Down by the borderline. Down by the borderline one more time. Down by the borderline.
These children for the good of all of our community and our nation. To build a nation that is welcoming. To build a nation that is great, and we're great based upon our kindness, our connection with other people, the way we treat people, and the way we honor our own past. I don't know about you, but my grandparents were immigrants. Were your grandparents immigrants?
Folks, he's taking a lot of pictures, so come up to the wall.
Everybody
up front.
As it, you know, that's what happened,
How
right?
many people have great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents? Exactly. We are all a nation of immigrants, and that is what has made us a great nation with diversity and talent and skills. And that's what we are standing for now. We also want to acknowledge the people that were not immigrants in this country. The Lenape people that lived here in the Delaware Valley, that have been here for tens of thousands of years. They have cared for this land. They have been our neighbors, and we are grateful for them for their own cultural teachings. One of the most important cultural teaching is that of the 7 generations, that our children are our future. Our children, our future. Our children, our future. Our children, our future. Thank you to the Lenape. We honor their wisdom, we honor their presence on this land, and we honor everybody that's coming forth to speak for a kind and caring world for all human beings, especially for our children.
Good morning.
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 I take this becomes personal for me in the sense that in the late 1930s, my grandmother, who was a widow, a single mom with several children, tried to come into the United States from where she was in Poland. But the discriminatory U.S. immigration laws at the time did not allow my grandmother to come here with her children. Consequently, my grandmother was murdered, as well as 3 of her children were murdered because they couldn't come into this country. Thankfully, my mom was able to survive and later came here. So we know that immigration policies that keep people out lead to death. We also know that immigration policies that are cruel at the border lead to death of children and adults at the border. We are standing across from a museum, and though we can't see it from the tree because of the trees now, there's a large quote up there by George Washington that talks about creating a nation free of prejudice and that would be tolerant. Would it were so that we were that nation today. We need a nation that welcomes people, and yet what do we have? On any given day right now, we have 15,000 immigrant children and 40 to 50,000 adults are in the custody of the U.S. government. Thus far, 7 immigrant children, 6 from Guatemala and 1 from El Salvador, have died in federal custody since September 2018. These children died after becoming ill in Border Patrol's crowded temporary holding areas or in shelters supervised by the Department of Health and Human Services. 24 adult immigrants have also died in custody. Today, we want to remember these young children, to honor them, to express our deep shame, and to voice our outrage about the policies and conditions that are responsible for these deaths. We, members of Elder Witness, demand that the U.S. government accept responsibility for these deaths. Our government must stop housing immigrant children in these inhumane conditions and find a way for them to enter the United States. Here's what we know so far about these children, their capture, and subsequent deaths.
In June of this year, 2 different teams of highly qualified lawyers, experts in immigration and public law issues visited the camps. I will be reading dispatches from their descriptions of what they found. This is the first dispatch from the border. Many of the children were unaccompanied minors. They had crossed the border without any parents or other family member present. Here is what the legal teams reported. This is the legal team's wording now. Many of the infants and toddlers are being cared for by older children. A young girl told the lawyers, a Border Patrol agent came to our room with a 2-year-old baby and asked us, who wants to take care of this boy? 3 other girls were trying to take care of a 2-year-old who had wet his pants and had no diaper. Lawyers reported seeing similar scenes of children taking care of babies at 6 other facilities along the border.
This is the story of Felipe Gomez Alonso, 8, who died in Border Patrol custody on Christmas Eve, 2018. We have Felipe's photo here somewhere. Yeah, there's Felipe. There he is. Bless you. Felipe and his father, Agustin Gomez Perez, were caught by the Border Patrol in mid-December. They were seeking asylum in an attempt to escape horrific poverty in Guatemala. Augustin's daughter came back home, took out a loan to pay for their journey. Once in Border Patrol custody, Felipe and his father were taken to several holding areas, including under the infamous Paso del Norte International Bridge in El Paso, where they were held in hastily erected pens and sleeping on bare dirt. Then they were driven to Border Patrol station in Alamogordo, New Mexico. An agent noticed that Felipe was coughing with glassy eyes and complained of a sore throat, congestion, and fever. Well, Felipe finally got to a hospital, and he had 103 temperature and tested positive for the flu. He was held for observation 90 minutes and released with prescriptions. He felt much sicker hours later and was readmitted to the hospital. And there, alone in that hospital, Felipe Gomez Alonso died.
Yesterday, the ACLU went to court to say that asylum seekers are not criminals. Yes. Do you agree? Yes. Do you agree? Yes. So, Now, who is the criminal here? Who is the criminal here when children are ripped from their parents? Who is the criminal here when people are in cages without their rights? Who is the criminal here when people are coming here because they might be killed in their own country? That is the voice, that is the words that we're going to sing. And the Spanish is this. Dime quién, quién es el criminal. Try it. Dime quién, quién es el criminal. Tell me who's the criminal here? Tell me, dime quién es el, try it again. Tell me who's the criminal? Dime quién es el criminal? If you've had to leave your land and you meet your match on the burning sand, when all you want is a helping hand, who's the criminal here? Tell me who, who's the criminal here? Dime quién es el criminal? When your children are taken from your sight to cry out poppy in the night, when people in cages have no rights, who's the criminal here? Tell me who's the criminal here? Dime quién es el criminal? I can shut my eyes and I can turn away. I can shut my mouth with nothing to say. When children are locked up today, who's the criminal here? Tell me who's the criminal here? Dime quién es el criminal? I know how fear can leave you blind to the hopeful heart and the open mind. But to make a crime out of being kind, who's the criminal here? Tell me who's the criminal here? Tell me quién es el criminal? Tell me who. They want to hear it in the White House. The criminal here. Dime quién. And Governor Wolf, tell criminal. Tell me who. Governor Wolf shut down Burks. Who's the criminal here? Dime quién. Quién es el criminal? Good job.
This is the 7th dispatch. Another dispatch now from the border. Another dispatch from the lawyer witnesses who visited the camps. Another group of immigrants, children and families and single adults, who were imprisoned by the Border Patrol behind a chain link fence, topped with razor wire, said that they'd endured cold and windy nights, sleeping on bare dirt underneath the Paso del Norte international bridge that connects Ciudad Juarez with the city of El Paso in Texas. Most of the immigrants were given nothing but thin mylar blankets. But to add injury to the insults they'd already received, roosting pigeons on the bridge pooped down upon them.
Carlos Hernandez Vasquez, 16, was from Guatemala. According to the Border Patrol, I almost said control, Carlos was taken into custody after crossing the southern border in Texas's Rio Grande Valley on May 13th with 70 other migrants. He was an unaccompanied minor, traveling by himself. He was held at a temporary holding facility for 6 days before being transferred to a Border Patrol station in Weslaco, where he said he felt sick. A nurse diagnosed him with flu, prescribed Tamiflu. Hours later, Carlos was dead. It's not clear why he was not hospitalized or how frequently he was checked during his final hours. Officials said they did a wellness check an hour before the youth was found unresponsible, and the Border Patrol officials did not explain why Carlos was not transferred to the Department of Health and Human Services within 72 hours, as is required by law for youth. This photo is of Rigoberta Vasquez holding a photo of her 16-year-old son, Carlos Hernandez Vasquez, in her house in the San Jose del Rio village in Guatemala.
No more, no más, 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 no more, no más.
This is the 8th and final dispatch. This one is not from the border. It comes from another source. And that source is in Washington, D.C. The source is the Twitter machine of Donald J. Trump. He wrote, many of these illegal aliens held in detention are living far better now than where they came from, and in far safer conditions. So without intending to, President Trump has just admitted that many migrants are fleeing places where their lives and their health are more endangered than living in U.S. detention camps where 24 adults and 6 children thus far have died.
So, as elders, as citizens, we are witnessing the dehumanizing, cruel, and deadly treatment of innocent immigrant children. We demand that our government, the United States government, immediately take actions to guarantee their health and their well-being, and provide them safe passage out of the detention camps so that they may be reunited with their families and have the opportunities to go forth in their lives, living creative and fulfilling lives, and healing the wounds that have been inflicted, the trauma that have been inflicted upon them. We are elders, we are American citizens, and this is our duty and our right to stand up and to speak out. Yes, yes, yes. So this is 2019, and many of us have been struggling with these issues for quite a while, especially around detaining children. I'd like to ask Shira to come up and share a story with us that took place 60 years ago, 70 years ago. A story that we all have listened to and have grown up with hearing these stories. And we said, never again. We didn't think it could happen here. Well, this is the beginning, perhaps, of it happening here. We must be diligent. We must be witnesses. We must be courageous to stand up and to speak out so that it does not happen here. And we can say, with our own sense of honor, never again. Never again. Never again. Never again.
This description may sound very familiar. It's an entry from the diary of Yitzhak Radevsky. He's 14 years old upon this writing. It's September 6th, 1941. And he writes about being deported into the Vilna ghetto. It swarms with people. The newcomers begin to settle down, each in his tiny bit of space on his bundles. Additional Jews stream in constantly. We settle down in our place. Besides the four of us, there are 11 persons in the room. The room is a dirty and stuffy one. It is crowded. The first ghetto night, we lie 3 together on 2 doors. I do not sleep. In my ears resounds the lamentation of this day. I hear the restless breathing of people with whom I have suddenly been thrown together. People who, just like me, have suddenly been uprooted. The first ghetto day begins. I run right out into the street. The little streets are still full of a restless mass of people. It's hard to push your way through. I feel as if I was in a box. There is no air to breathe. Wherever you go, you encounter a gate that hems you in. Yitzhak Radeshki, 14 years old. Never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. So folks, it's pretty hot out here in Independence Mall, and we want to share a few more words with you, and then we'll all go find some shade. But as we do, let's remember how difficult it is for so many people crossing over into this country, and the policies that are being made that really discourage people, but most, that we want to protect our children, our future. We want to protect all children and our future.
All children.
Our future.
All children.
Our future.
All children.
Our future.
All children.
Our future. And we know that as elders, that children are our future. We have the time to sit back a bit and look at our lives and understand what we want for the future generations. And that's why we have the privilege of standing up as elders with our life experience and being able to speak to these issues.
If there was ever a time to stand up for the right of rebellion, this is it. And we are standing here on Independence Mall. And we'll now end with one more song from Voices Rise Philly.
Thank you. So this is a really simple song you can help us sing even if you've never heard it before. It's a song I wrote based on the sign. I think at least one person has it here that says, "Hate has no home here." So this is "Hatred has no place." And it's a simple zipper song, which means each section is pretty much the same with just a change of a word or two. So hatred has no place in my heart. Hatred has no place in my heart. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place in my heart. In my home. Hatred has no place in my home.
En mi casa.
Hatred has no place in my home.
En mi casa.
Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place in my home. In my town. Hatred has no place in my town.
En mi pueblo.
Hatred has no place in my town.
En mi pueblo.
Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place in my town. In this land. Hatred has no place in this land. Hatred has no place in this land. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place in this land. Hatred has no place at the border. Hatred has no place at the border. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place. place. Hatred has no place at the border. In this world, hatred has no place in this world.
En el mundo.
Hatred has no place in this world. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place in this world. That's the heart. Finish it up. Hatred has no place in my heart. Hatred has no place in my heart. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place. Hatred has no place in my heart. Thank you for the running.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for our seniors. The people in all this world, thank you for showing up and thank you for standing. Hatred has no place in our world.
Anymore. Right. You know?